Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the conversation series on mediation, created with an aim and vision to promote awareness of mediation in the world around us and to talk about mediation from another alternative dispute resolution solution from the perspective of a common person. We continue with a short legal disclaimer. The views expressed herein are the voluntary personal perspectives of the speakers and may or may not represent the views of the larger professional community they belong to. The conversation series aims to provide a general overview of the subject matter involved and may not be construed as a legal or professional advice in any manner whatsoever. This session is being recorded for wide circulation. Let me introduce the main speakers and the guest panels for today's very diverse session, trying to paint the canvas of with all the facets of practice of mediation. We have lead speaker of the upcoming session where we have Advocate Viraj Tirikson, Director of Fair Practice, an admitted advocate and the founder of Fair Practice, an internationally accredited civil commercial mediator and negotiator. She is a graduate in alternate dispute resolution and is a lead trainer for Fair Practice and Arbitration Foundation of South Africa in mediation, negotiation, and skills training. She has trained hundreds of professionals, including presiding officers in judiciary, senior members of the Bar Council, and delegates from South African Defense Force in mediation, negotiation, and conflict management. She is a Harvard-trained mediator and negotiator, also represents South Africa on the global scale with her endorsements of mediation advocacy. Viraj is a trustee of an organization, Matla Abana, a voice against child abuse, and works closely with the SACs in volunteering her time to assist where needed. Her passion for giving people a voice to reduce emotional trauma in disputes has made her an invited keynote speaker at numerous conferences and events worldwide. Welcome on board, Vilash. It's a long bio of yours, but I've just concised it to make it fit here.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, Sonal. Thank you for making me a part of this discussion. I have been looking forward to it, and I hope I can contribute effectively to this discussion. And hello to the fellow panelists and the people watching as well. Hello.
Yes, definitely. So, Professor Sudesh Kumar, Professor of Practice in Banking, Finance with 34-year banking industry experience, superannuated as DGM and Head of Fraud Risk Management and alternate additional Chief Public Information Officer from Indian Bank, a professional banker with diverse and challenging experience across the fields of banking, finance, law, and academia. Worked in various leadership positions in banking services, has been a faculty at the bank's EPET Staff College. Headed prime positions in head office, zonal office, and branch head of extra large branches. Among various of his qualifications that he possesses in various areas of banking and finance, he also holds a degree in law and is registered at Bar Council of UP as an advocate. So welcome on board to the Sudesh, Mr. Sudesh Kumar. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much to include me in the panel. And I think we all will be learning and helping in the progress of this conciliation and mediation and arbitration of the commercial disputes. So I'm thankful for calling me. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you for coming, sir. Madam Prerna Kohli. Prerna is a founding senior partner and mediator at Zeus, and mediator at the High Court, Delhi High Court Mediation and Conciliation Center, Samadhan. A commercial mediator, she possesses a SIMI mediator accreditation and an IMI mediator advocacy accreditation. A firm believer in building a golden bridge of hope between the parties as mediation, according to her, is a burgeoning opportunity for bringing peace and harmony. Welcome on board, Prerna. You told me that it should be very short and sweet, so I've kept it very short and sweet for you.
So good evening, Sonal, Viraj, and Mr. Sudesh, and everybody who's present here. Thank you for inviting me for this session.
So that's a lovely and diverse panel. First of all, we are trying to bring here and paint a canvas or mark a symphony with different facets of mediation. That's what I would call this session as. So Virash, you have a diverse role. You are a negotiator, an arbitrator, and a mediator, and you have been a founding member of your firm. So I want to know, what is the practice of mediation according to you? How you describe your mediation as?
Well, if I were to describe my style of mediation, it's transformative and facilitative. And I think those who are knowledgeable around the styles of mediation, they will understand that it means we are trying to preserve the human relationships. We want to facilitate the discussions as well, as neutral as we can be, as impartial as we can be. And that is the practice that we talk about here in South Africa. The evaluative style, which is more for people who are knowledgeable in their specific expertise, that is something I don't really jump into when I'm training my delegates and participants into, because it's developing the mindset of the mediator that I focus on. And in South Africa, we have such a varying background of people, multicultural, multilingual. We have 11 official languages. We have to accommodate everybody's perspective. There are disputes coming about that in South Africa, mediation can be effective, mainly because of the socioeconomic background of most of our people. 70% of our people don't have access to courts, they don't have access to legal representation. And that's from the background of our past, our historical past. So mediation has played an excellent role in bridging the gap of accessing I wouldn't say appropriate, but alternatives to not having access to the courts, but at least leading the way into having an access to dispute resolution in the what we call tribunal forums, because our African customary practices began with mediation as a dispute resolution forum. So our practice of mediation in South Africa nowadays includes the African customary practice of mediation, and it is now seeing a rise in mediation being included in legislation. We have over 40 pieces of legislation that includes mediation as a thought of dispute resolution. We have a rise in training of mediators. We have a rise in legal practitioners wanting to understand the practice of mediation. What is it? Where do they fit in? So I hope that gives you just a really brief, candid background of the practice of mediation in South Africa. I believe, and as a trainer and as a teacher and as a lecturer, is on the rise.
Yes, and when you talk about multilinguistic background, that almost gives us, synonymous with India, because we also have a multilinguistic, multicultural, diverse background. We still have, and in fact, we have religious diversity, we have linguistic diversity, we have a lot of cultural diversity, where and now if I can also say, because India, some parts are totally in a metro, then we have our totally villages where cultural diversity is there. So when we talk about dispute resolution, it has to cover a lot of diversity. And as you say that, mediation can help a lot there in understanding. So let's call upon Prerna here. Prerna, since she is talking about diversity and linguistic diversity, who can better understand one who is working, in the field of mediation for long and who has worked in a diverse culture? Let's talk about you, how mediation has evolved in India.
So let me begin by saying that alone we do so little, and together we are able to do so much.
Yes.
India is the world's second largest nation, as well as it's the largest democracy. Our culture has had tolerance as its hallmark down the centuries. And each individual's thinking is anchored in cooperation. And that is why it's incredible India, the fascinating country. It's an abode for spirituality and for the seekers, where mindfulness and meditation is considered as one of the core ingredients to reach calm and a balanced state of mind. It is a very similar approach we as mediators consider essential to be serene and peaceful and create an atmosphere for our parties in dispute. So when we talk about the ancient Indian scriptures, they reflect coexistence, and it has been for centuries. There is evidence that since then we have heavily relied on mediation to resolve our disputes, looking at the Vedic and the Aryan times. Buddhism, it follows the concept of middle path. And then, of course, we have the Gita, where Sri Krishna was the mediator for the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And we can easily say that it is all about for the people, by the people, and in the interest of people, which has existed for so many years since ancient India. We have the panchayat system, where we have the wise elderly who are considered the decision-making body. And we have also certain tribes in India which follow the characteristics of mediation when it comes to resolving conflicts. It is in the British era that we actually saw the advent of the adversarial justice system, which was very formal. Thereafter, independent India got the constitution awareness of fundamental rights and individual rights, gave growth to a lot of government participation in the business and commerce industry, establishment of the parliament, the state legislatures. And with this increase, we saw numerous new enactments which followed, creating new rights and remedies, and that obviously resulted in litigation explosion. There was a sea of activity and government became the biggest litigant. As such, the infrastructure to handle sheer load of the volumes of cases and court congestion was getting tedious. And we had, of course, the eminent personalities like Mahatma Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, Nani Palkiwala, who took pride in cases and settling them out through the mediation process. With economic liberalization policies in India and with world reforms, it was concluded that the time for mediation had come. We witnessed various enactments. To begin with, we had the concept which received legal recognition in the Industrial Dispute Act and in the Trade Dispute Act. The Special Marriage Act and the Hindu Marriage Act both talked about endeavor to bring reconciliation between parties. We had the Legal Service Authority Act, which encouraged settlements of dispute by way of negotiation, arbitration, and conciliation. We saw the introduction of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act, and there are two principal enactments that dealt with mediation in India. They were the Civil Procedure Code and the Arbitration Conciliation Act. Other legislations followed soon and covered mediation. We had the enactments which were about the commercial code, which provided for ample boost to mediation. That was the Commercial Courts Act. Then we had the Companies Act. We had the RERA, the Real Estate Act. We had, of course, followed by the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Development Act. We had the Consumer Protection Act. And then, of course, there is much debate going on. It is regarding the draft bill, which is
going to become the law.
Yeah,
So,
law.
Prerna, this is what I was saying, that we have come a long way from the times when panchayati system was there. There was in the villages, self legislation, self the people voting for a panchayat and they deciding the disputes, because that's self legislation and that is basis of democracy, actually speaking. So that has brought a lot of diversification of India and to one unifying way. Now, when we talk about applicability of disputes to different areas, because when we talk about when the diversification happened, when India moved from that you're talking about, what happened in the history of it. Now, when I talk about the future, Let's call upon Sudesh here. Sudesh, you have been in the banking industry, and where I see from your bio that you gave me that you have been in a diverse and challenging experience, where you have also been a risk management personnel, and you're trained in that field. So let's talk to you. Is there any scope of mediation in such a field? That's the upcoming thing, because mediation now, when the law will come up, there will be a lot of work in this field also. So, what's your idea there?
Here, so thank you, Sonal, and thank you, Prerna and Viraj. Uh, Thank you for calling me, first of all. Then, here, I will try to explain what type of disputes are there, which bank handle either as a plaintiff, initiator of the case, or as a defendant. So I'll explain what are the types of disputes, and then we can find out where we can find the future scope for the mediation or arbitration. So several types of disputes are there, and in India, most of the disputes are handled by so many regulatory or statutory bodies which have been created either by the government of India or by the banking regulator, that means RBI. So just we have to, you can say, search for the avenues where we can have those disputes resolved out of those forums created by RBI or government of India. Now, I'll try to explain what are the types of dispute. One type of dispute is in check collection. So, say
Okay.
we talk of check collection, so
Yes.
two, three things can be there. Either check is rejected, means bounced due to some irregular reasons, like the means bank has returned the check for the reason that the customer's account does not have balance, right?
Okay.
So, in those cases, sometimes the customer can say that no, there was a balance, you have wrongly rejected it, or
And
the check was
if I just intervene, that becomes a criminal offense, right? As far as India is concerned, check
bouncing. No,
bounce cases.
you are talking of NI Act 138 section. That
Okay.
is a different aspect. That
Okay.
is a aspect when check is returned due to means non-availability of balance or the limit, when the check has been issued by one person to another person for
Okay.
payment of some liability, you can say, right? If that is true, then only. So bank is not the party in it. Try to understand it.
Okay.
Under section 138, there is a debtor, there is a creditor, right? And debtor has made the payment through a check, है ना? And the check is bounced due to the reason either the issuer of the check, drawer of the check has rescinded it, one thing, or he does not have sufficient balance in his account, or he has not arranged for the funds, like he has not availed any limit from the credit limit from the bank, right? So
Okay.
this is between the debtor and creditor. Bank is just a, you can say, a party for clearing of check. He is maintaining the funds on behalf of the issuer of the check, right? Means the drawer, and he is not the party to the dispute, frankly speaking. है ना? So what you are talking of. So here, in case of PRD cases, sometimes non-genuine check means forced check is cleared. So there may be a dispute between the, you can say, drawer and the drawee. But because bank has collected a forced check, non-genuine check, so bank will also become a party in such cases. Suppose a forced check is drawn on my account and bank pays it. Naturally, I will claim the reimbursement from my bank, right? So it will be seen whether the check was really a forced check or not. Several aspects are there. In check truncation system, several safeguards has been initiated in the check features itself. So whenever bank is passing the check, so bank has to take care of all those aspects, means features, just safety features, safety and security features. And for resolution of such type of disputes, RBI, or you can say the clearing houses at several places, they have their own, you can say, this dispute resolution panels. Those cases are called PRD cases, panel of resolution of disputes. So those are created at those clearing houses. The head of those this PRD is normally the DGM of the RBI, who is heading that clearing house, and disputant are collecting and paying bankers only. So they have to
Yeah.
present the case to them, and you can say no other party can participate in that. Not any lawyer or an advocate or a, you can say, this arbitrators, etc. Means that panel itself is an arbitrator, and that will decide a case, right? If means normally what happens, that banks abide by whatever decision is given by those panels, due to the reason that those panels, in most of the cases, those panels have been created either by the regulator RBI or by the Ministry of Finance, Government of India, right? So both the way they have enough powers uh, to control the behavior of the banks. So whatever decisions are taken in the PRD, normally banks abide by them. There are hardly any cases when the case goes to any High Court or Supreme Court in appeal, right? So one aspect is
So,
there.
do you really see the scope of mediation there?
No, that presently I don't find any scope. In most of the cases, you will feel that there is a very little scope, but still we have to create. Means I will say like that, that once upon a time it was said that some company sent a person to South Africa. Viras, are you listening? Some person was sent by a shoemaking company to South Africa to explore how many shoes or the sandals or chappals can be sold there. And the person went there and he find out that nobody wears any shoes, etc. So he reported that there is no scope because nobody wears any shoe or chappal, etc. Right? After 10 years, again the company thought, shoemaking company thought that okay, let us again find out whether there is any scope. So again some person went there, and he find it out that nobody wears the shoes. So he said that lot of scope is there because nobody wears. We can sell the shoes to everybody.
Oh, so
So,
that really speaks
so
well.
I'm just saying that we have to find the scope. Nowhere scope is there. In no field scope is there. We have always to find the scope. We have to create the scope. In fact, do you think before this mobile phone was invented or computer was invented, there was any scope of those things? They were not, right? Once they were invented, there is a scope. Henna, it is always growing. So I'm just saying what type of disputes are there in banking industry, right? And what is the present situation? Now we have to find out the scope, and if we are very ingenious, we can create the scope rather, right? A successful professional is that fellow who can create the scope. Henna?
Yes,
So
definitely.
this aspect was this that check temptation or check collection. Then we can say of the dispute between the staff and the bank. Sometimes for wage revision or for several other reasons, uh, staff union or officers union give a call of a strike, right? So some mediation takes place. Normally those mediations takes place between the unions and the banks association, you can say that is Indian Banks Association, that take part on behalf of all the banks. So mediation is done by the chief labor commissioner, or sometimes it is also done by the Ministry of Finance. So this is the situation. Now you try to find out what is the scope for professionals. Okay.
That is
So
really
second time.
interesting. So, let's stop you for some time and let's talk to again back to Virash. Virash, you have a diverse role when you talk about, you talk about child abuse also, your work in child abuse, against child abuse. So, what is the scope of a mediator there? How do you help those people? I want to know about that role also.
So in that role, as part of the child abuse organization that I'm a trustee of, and I'm part of a brilliant team of people who work in this devastating field. The organization itself, what it does is it produces teams of people who go in, and it trains people who have to deal with children who have suffered abuse. And what the teams of people who are trained by our teams do is they teach the professionals, whether it's the police services, doctors, whoever has to deal with that child, social workers. There's like I said, there's an element of human relationships there developing, because the child has now got to trust this person to tell them what has happened. And what our organization works with is minimizing the secondary abuse children suffer when they report the abuse that they have unfortunately experienced. And this secondary abuse could come from those professionals. It could come from the doctors. It could come from the people they're reporting to. It could come from the police officers or the social workers who haven't been properly trained or are being triggered by what this child has experienced. So I'm not sure how it is in India. I know when there's a lot of child abuse, the reporting system becomes unsympathetic. They become desensitized to the child. So in part of what our training is, and part of bringing in what we train in mediation, which is communication skills, our training is how to manage the emotions, how to manage the dialogue that is coming from someone who is traumatized. And in mediation, when we're dealing with high conflict people, somewhere in there, you're dealing with a traumatized person. So as mediators, we have to understand, how are we managing emotions? And where I take my training further and take my training into these child organizations that deal with children, that protect children, is late last year, I was asked to, we had the Children's Month. I think the whole world goes into Children's Month around November. And I was asked to speak to a group of children. And we know, and it's sometimes hard to talk about it when I'm actually vocalizing it right now, we know what they've gone through. We've seen the reports, we've seen the case files. And they said to me, come and talk to them. There's a group, it could have been about 50 children, ranging of ages from 7 years old to under 18 years old. And they said, talk to them. You have to really, and I think this comes from my mediation training, it comes from learning how to manage human relationships, is you have to have the confidence to stand in front of children you know are suffering and are traumatized and are being abused daily, and then talk to them about managing their emotions. Talk to them about what it's like to be in a conflict, and have them tell you what they're experiencing. And I think a lot of our training as professionals comes from us maintaining our composure to help to actively listen, to communicate, and to get them to trust us, like we do with our clients in mediation, to trust us, to tell us what they're experiencing so we can help them. So that is my work, very briefly, in how we work with children who have been abused. We have a section or a sector, a field that we call Get Conversations Going. Yes, it's conversations with people. Really, because South Africa protects the voice of the child, they have a right to speak. My job as a children's advocate is to listen to their voice, give them a chance to be heard. In our legislation, in our Children's Act, where there's mediations involving issues, child issues, children's issues involving children for contact and care, we must listen to the voice of the child. Right now, it's not mandatory that we listen to the voice of the child, but we must give them that chance to speak. And that is my fight, and that is where I want to endorse listening to the voice of the child.
That's really nice, because when you talk about how I like how your mediation skills make you understand the emotions of children also, because when you are when you have that sensitivity coming, that empathy coming, then you are able to build that trust that they are going to open up to you and talk to you. And if they are, like you said, facing secondary, that you told me, secondary abuse of the authority, then of course, because once a child is being abused, and the moment they have tried to confide that in an authority and they are again abused, they are going to close down to any human person ever, any stranger or even anybody, because to be able to trust second time a person and to be able to open that, that means that person has some skills that builds up the trust and able to go there where the child will be able to confide in you what the child is going through. That was really great. That was really
It's a
great. That's a
difficult
really
place to be. It is a difficult place to be in, and I think as part of our skills training in mediation, and I think you know this, Sonal, I'm always talking about listening to people, giving people a voice. Sometimes we forget that children have a voice too, and we are so focused. We are so focused on the disputes of parents and the disputes of employees, we forget the impact it's having on the other members in the home.
Yes.
So we have such great responsibility as mediators. When you, and I say this even to my students and delegates, when you decide to take on that role of mediator, you take on a responsibility of helping them manage their human relationships, and you're helping them build their confidence in themselves, in their self-esteem, to give voice to what they're going through.
So Prerna, now coming back to you, when she talks about that kind of a role, that kind of a practice, how do you think India has been able to, in the past few years, like we talked about, you talked about the history, how it has grown, mediation from the past. Now, when we are facing, and especially you are practicing in human relationships, I think you're practicing into family and different fields in that aspect. So, considering the different, multi-linguistic and cultural diversity, and considering the fact that India is a joint family system where families are well knit close and there are disputes happening in a joint family system. So, how do you think that sensitivity of a mediator comes up and it helps in your practice, from your practice?
Yeah, so basically, we every accomplishment that happens, it is with the decision to try. And we all know that India, most of the population which is in the rural, and they are depending more on the informal processes of mediation. And when we talk about mediation, I personally feel it's more of a service. And when the parties, as my friend Virash mentioned, when you start communicating, when parties start venting, it's also involving a lot of healing in the process. And because when you look at litigation, we all understand that it's an unwelcome house guest that stays not only for a day or two, but for years and maybe even decades. And that is where you need to empower people and let them know that there is a platform where the have-nots have to be heard. So basically, as a mediator, I think it's very, very important that we, when we are sitting in mediation, and the parties are like, at times you get parties which are from very remote areas and they're not even aware of the concept. We need to get into the roots of their conflict, go beyond them, the involvement of the family, the community life that they are in. Because see, ultimately, all that has an impact on their minds. And that is where, because you have to find the root cause of the issue before you start addressing it. And that's actually when the healing process begins. So it's like, you have to make sure that the society is aiming towards self-empowerment and bringing a larger social harmony. And not only the fact that we are neutrals and we are watching them suffer silently or exhausting themselves hopelessly and running direction without any direction. So I think once we are trained, it is very, very important that we also give awareness about the pre-litigation concept. It necessarily doesn't have to be that matters have to go to court initially, because I feel that at the pre-litigative state, when the dispute is young and not even in an entrenched state, and there is lesser documentation, there are chances that they will come out with a far better success rate. So that is my firm belief on that, and we follow a very structured
Yeah.
process. And hope is something which I think is so crucial in this process, because he could be, I mean, from any strata of society. It's how we are going to empower them. How are we going to work towards a collaborative approach? Because it has to be all about the parties when we talk about mediation. We have to make them comfortable. We have to break the ice. We have to get in the trust element, though it's easier said than
Yes.
done. But even I think when the
Definitely.
mediator is sitting on the table, the body language of a mediator, I mean, we talk about parties, it's equally important for the mediator to send an aura where parties are feeling at comfort, they're willing to open up, they wish to talk, and they want to get to the root of the problem.
Yes.
And that is where, of course, as the main ingredients which we talk about, the active listening, and we are encouraging them to share their information in a transparent manner. All that comes into rule play. So I think I would just like to say that in principally, we have to focus on the problem, on their interests, not their positions. We have to look at mutual gains. We have to follow the objective criteria. We have to look at, because ultimately it's the parties. And as a mediator, it's something which has to, have to respect them. Whatever they decide and are able to follow it long term will come in the terms. So it's entirely a transformation process happening simultaneously. And I mean, I think this is the biggest blessing if you are trained as a mediator and you understand that it is a life skill, and it has to be a part of your personality. You have to reflect when your kind of sessions get over. How could you better yourself? How could you build that golden bridge? How could you introduce empathy, forgiveness, and preserve relationships, their reputations, make them think towards their future? So all these things are very important elements, and of course,
Yes.
mutual respect in the long run. And that's the way, I mean, I feel that it gives not only them the encouragement, but it also gives them the confidence to approach towards mediation.
Yes. And I really like what you said. Litigation is an unwelcome house guest staying for decades. That was really a statement. I copied it down. So that was really great. And when we talk about pre-litigation concept also, and when we talk about trust, Virash also mentioned, and it's very important. So, Sudesh, talk to you here again. When she talks about, Prerna talks about litigation being a very unwelcome guest, but that unwelcome guest is quite often in the banking industry a very rooted one, if I would say. So how do you think can we, since you were talking about we have to find a way. So do you think there is a way, especially in banking industry disputes, there is a way of mediating before we finally take the plunge to the legal recourse?
So, Sonal, here I'll tell you that in any type of disputes, bank have two types of positions. One position is that we are not the disputant, in fact. We are just the party in between, right? As I gave you an example of a collection of checks, and a check has been drawn by somebody, has
Yes,
been given in favor of some other person, right? Bank is neither the debtor nor the creditor, or bank is not liable to pay the money. है ना?
yes,
So here bank is just managing the payment system. So in
yes,
between, if there is any dispute between the drawer and the drawee, bank just becomes the pro forma party in any case, right? Bank itself is not a disputant, neither any defendant nor any plaintiff. One thing. Second thing, sometimes, again, you can say if, suppose I will give an example, suppose bank has issued some bank guarantee in favor of some of its contractor customer, which has, you can say, backed a big contract, means construction contract, say a bridge or road, right? And the beneficiary invokes that bank guarantee. So what will happen? means uh, the beneficiary will say that the term of contract has not been fulfilled, the construction has been not been done, or its quality is not good, or whatever may be the reason, and he invokes the bank guarantee. Now, bank is as per the law, or as per the, you can say, banking law and practice, or even the Contract Act, right? Bank is nobody to ask or to see on evidence, or to you can say ask for any evidence from the beneficiary to prove that really the you can say principal debtor has uh, you can say not fulfilled any of his duties, responsibilities under the contract of guarantee. Bank is nobody. Once
Okay.
the notice is sent by the beneficiary to the banker, bank is bound to pay the money. This is the case under the law, right? But only one thing is there, that when the principal debtor says to the bank that there is a fraudulent transaction, the creditor, or you can say the beneficiary of the bank guarantee, has made some fraudulent act, or they have fraudulently invoked the bank guarantee, then he may ask the bank not to pay the money under the bank guarantee. This is one case. So in that case, what will happen? Either the principal debtor will produce any uh, stay order from the court, right? Or he may submit a proof to the bank that okay, the case has been gone for some arbitration or some conciliation, etc. On that basis, bank can, you can say, stay the payment of the money under the bank guarantee. But otherwise, bank, the legal position is this: there are several Supreme Court cases also that bank is bound to pay the money. So here also,
So
actually,
here,
bank was
sorry. So here you don't see any scope of mediation, because
we,
when you talk
we
about,
have to search. I'll again say, I'm nobody to say there is an scope. You see, scope is everywhere, and
yes,
every time there is a scope, right? We have to find it out. I cannot say things are not in black and white, right? Things are not in black and white. है ना? We have to find the ways. Okay,
yes,
I'm just giving you the scopes, means I'm just giving you an idea what type of disputes are there in banking industry. है
yes,
ना?
I do understand.
Either the bank is a litigant itself, or it's a
Yes,
pro forma party, just a pro forma party, right?
yes.
So this
But
was this one.
sorry, we have always seen that there is a legal representative on the rolls of every bank, where a legal head or a legal section is there in every bank, and for the litigation purposes. Now, when there is a legal head, that means there are some disputes happening for which the mediation, or for which the litigation is required. As a layperson, I am talking. So when there are scope of litigation, there has to be scope of mediation also. That's what my point is. Now please continue, because I
Yeah,
stopped
that is
you
right. That
there.
is right. That is right. Where the scope is there, in fact, wherever there is a contract between the bank and any of the other party, that the dispute will be referred to the arbitrator or mediator, then of course the scope is there. So this scope normally is available in case of supply of hardware or software. Banking industry is such type of industry which is investing very heavily on upgradation of its hardware and software. Means many thousand crores rupees are spent by every bank every year, right? Each bank spends few thousand crores rupees every year. So here means lot of hardware and softwares are purchased or upgraded every year. And of course, there may be some dispute, and in all such cases, there is definitely a arbitration clause.
Yes.
But I have asked to the people who were heading the legal department of our bank, I have asked to them also. There has not been any such case which has been means referred to the arbitration, except only one in the Allahabad Bank, where Allahabad Bank purchased some hardware and software for installation of some of the ATMs in remote places. So there, the internet, there the connectivity was required, telephone or internet connectivity was required, then only they could have been made functional. The ATMs could have been made functional. So this responsibility was of the BSNL at provide the connectivity. Until and unless connectivity is there, ATM could not work because it cannot link the means accounts of the customer with the CVS system, right? So there, although the hardware and software was purchased, but they could not be installed due to means lack of connectivity. So bank paid only so much of money for the ATMs which were actually made functional. In those cases, the case went to the arbitrator. But suo moto, matlab, in the this arbitration clause, name of the arbitrator was not mentioned. So suo moto, the vendor made a person as arbitrator and given the case to him. But as you know, that arbitrator are selected on the mutual consent. So this was not in fact an arbitration. Naturally, the case went to the court and whatever decision was taken, right? So this is the only case where arbitration was done, and this was in purchase of hardware and so on. Now I'll come to another example where lot of arbitrations are taking place, right? Like Reserve Bank of India has created, means earlier also there was schemes of banking ombudsman, है ना? And latest banking ombudsman, that is called integrated scheme of banking ombudsman, that was you can say notified in the year 2021. So here three types of disputes are mentioned there. One is that banking ombudsman scheme. Other was for ombudsman scheme for digital transactions. And third one was ombudsman scheme for non-banking financial companies. Right. So here that has been issued by the RBI. This scheme has been issued by the RBI, which is the regulator of the banking industry. So
Yes.
whatever they say, howsoever softly they say, in fact, this is a direction for the bank. Banks are bound to obey all those things. So here, if any deficiency is there in any service provided by the bank, then the customer will first ask the bank to rectify it or pay the compensation or whatever the case may be. And if no solution is provided by the bank or no, you can say reply is given by the bank within 30 days or whatever solution bank is provided, the customer is not satisfied with that, then they can approach the arbitrator, sorry, ombudsman. Then of course, the reply will be sought from the bank and the decision will be taken by the ombudsman and an award will be issued, right?
So
So
that
here,
that
try to understand.
yes.
Here, let
So
me complete.
yes, sir. Sure,
So
sure.
here, actually the scheme is nomenclatured as ombudsman scheme, but actually always ombudsmen are appointed normally for corruption cases against the ministers or higher bureaucrats, you can say. So in fact, here such type of disputes cannot be raised. Means no dispute can be raised against any bank employee or against the management or the board. This is the cases only of deficiency of service can be means uh, reported to the ombudsman. One thing. Second thing, in fact, what they are doing, they are issuing an award. So, in fact, they are the arbitrator, not the ombudsman. Means nomenclature is different. In fact, they are saying it is ombudsman, but in fact, they are not. They are in fact the arbitrator. But you can say that this authority is means created and imposed by the regulator himself. Bank has no authority not to obey it, right? So here, bank is not a party in appointing an arbitrator. Try to understand it. Normally, arbitrators are appointed with the mutual consent of the litigants, right? But
Yes.
here, RBI has appointed the uh, arbitrator himself or means itself, right? So disputes are referred by the customers. The bank cannot be the, you can say, complainant. Complainant can only be the customer against a
Yes.
bank for deficiency of services. right?
Yes, I do.
Just a
I
minute, just a minute. Then once the this award is issued by the RBI ombudsman, if bank is not satisfied or the customer is not satisfied, they can file an appeal. है ना? There
Yes,
is the
and that
provision of
goes to
appeal.
the court. Yes, I do
No, no,
understand that.
it does not go to the court. It means, let me explain fully, please. है ना? So there is an appellant authority in the ombudsman scheme itself. But what I want to say is this, that even if bank is not satisfied, it is hardly going into the court, because the ombudsman scheme has been lost by the RBI, which is the regulator. Bank hardly goes to the court. This is the point which I want to emphasize here.
So this is what I wanted to say, that when appointment of an arbitrator is there, the appointment of a mediator also can be from RBI to all the banking and finance services as a mandate before going to courts or to arbitration. This is what I wanted to bring out, that this regulation can come from the government itself.
Government can do it. Government can do it.
Yeah,
Probably we are able to convince the regulator and the government. Of course, that can be done. है ना?
yeah,
But
definitely.
in RBI, in regulated system, there is no process of mediation, right?
Yeah.
Either there are court cases, or the means arbitration is done by any regulatory authority itself. In
Yes,
our
I do
case, RBI.
understand. I was just talking about the scope of mediation. If arbitration can be enforced or and can be put in the nomenclature of dispute, so mediation can also come now. That's what I wanted to ask basically.
We have to means we have to approach the regulator. We should be able to convince it. I would also like to clarify here that although the dispute under banking ombudsman scheme can be lodged either by the complainant himself or through his any authorized representative, but an advocate cannot be the representative.
Okay, okay. Yes, definitely. So we come back to Viraj here. Viraj, when we talk about your work and how you feel that over the years mediation has worked and it has been doing great in your field over there in Africa, what would you like to conclude now? Because we've been talking a lot.
Well, in South Africa, we are mediation friendly from a customary point of view. It's always been in our African traditions. We lost it along the way. It's come back. And like I started saying earlier in our discussion, I'm seeing a rise in interest. I'm seeing a rise in the curiosity. What we need, though, is more mediation advocacy on becoming a mediator, on what it
Yes.
takes to be a good mediator, not just someone who sees it as, let me get this qualification so I can add an income source to my profession. Let me add an income source to now deciding I want to get a job. It's not that. It's not just saying I will take this, as I refer to it, as a profession, even though it's unregulated here in South Africa. You are in a professional capacity because you are dispensing services that people are using, people are paying for in most instances, especially in private mediation.
Yes.
So be competent about it. It's not a joke. Do not tarnish the industry of mediation by behaving as someone who's using this as just to line their pockets, as an income source, because it's so easy. Sonal, you even know, I'm sure it
Yes.
happens in India as well. It's so easy to get a mediation qualification. In
Yes.
South Africa, you just need 40 hours of training. Personally,
Here also.
I conduct 40 hours of training. And my students, my delegates, they say to me at the end of the 5 days, that was not enough. I
Yes.
don't believe I'm ready to do my first mediation. And as a trainer, and I say to them, well, let me take you through what and they ask me the same thing you asked me. What does it take to practice as a mediator? You've been doing this for over 10 years, and I have been doing this for over 10 years. I'm now nervous to go into the industry as a first-time mediator. what is it that I need to know? What am I going to face in my very first mediation? And everyone watching, listening, I'm sure even Prerna knows this, you are really sitting in a discomfort zone. You are not comfortable the very first time you sit in. And I say this to everyone, you're not going to be comfortable. It's okay. It's okay. Calm down. You're not going to be comfortable in putting on that hat as a mediator, and especially if you are a legal professional, because it's ingrained in you to switch into cross-examination mode, whereas you're meant to be asking open-ended questions and extracting information from people. So there's a lot into becoming a good mediator. And I heard the word reflection. I say this to my delegates and students as well. In that moment that you're not sure of your competency, reflect on what happened in that mediation, reflect on how you could have done better, and then use that as a teaching moment for yourself, because as mediators, we are constantly learning, we are constantly upskilling. There's new information every single day. And Sonal, you and I are on the same groups of people, in the same groups of information receiving. You can see something's changing every day. So when you reflect on how you can do it better the next time.
Yes, definitely. So that means that the practice of mediation has been growing, and with the change in the times, people are realizing more the need to be into a more professional, more more concise, more empath, more taking it into a restorative form, more into a listening skills form, and more because every mediation is different. There's no one rule that applies to all. One shoe that fits all is not there in this field. So we all know that. In fact. So when we talk about dispute resolution, there are things that we have to understand, that we are dealing with humans, and humans with emotions, humans with a different level of realization of the dispute, a different level of understanding of their maybe their wrongs and the rights, and at the same time a different level of tolerance as comes to, or acceptance as come to different things. So we are handling a lot of people, a lot of emotions, and yes, the qualities of a good mediator makes a huge impact. And yes, 40 hours is just not enough, and we all know that. And yes, it is in India also, a 40 hours course from a recognized institute makes you eligible. But then some of them are not even willing to take that 40 hours course, because when we are talking about people, especially in our another session also, we talked about judges who have been in a different role. When the crossover happens, it becomes difficult for them to realize that this is, many of them do realize, because they are an empath judge also. They deal with humans, even though they have to go by the laws, but they also have felt the human, especially the human aspect. So many of them do realize, and very few of them do not realize. And I have heard stories of people saying that, the judges try to handle it the way they would have handled a case. So, yes, for being a good mediator, you have to first not have your ego. I mean, it's not there. I mean, obviously. And you have to have a patient and empath ear and a non-judgmental attitude. Definitely. So that goes there. And yes, it means a lot. So, Prerna, any concluding comments by you? I mean,
See, basically what you said in continuation to that, change happens from home. So we have to work towards ourselves with conviction to begin with, because the adversarial mindset, which is entrenched, has to change. And we have to understand that the higher purpose is of a resolution. To get a better tomorrow, we have to work together for it today. And as you mentioned, India is a diverse country and the culture keeps changing every 20 kilometers.
yeah.
So Yeah, and as my friend Virash mentioned, and I think it's very correctly said that besides the practical training and the theoretical training, and both are very different. So when you actually get into the mediation, each mediation is going to be different. Each mediator is unique, and your style is very different. So I think it is something where we kind of need to actually understand and foster that. This is to ensure that we have to follow it ethically to begin with, and we have to basically give the youth the chance to spread more about mediation, because I think that they are our future. And then of course we are having a lot of colleges where the curriculum is mentioning about mediation now, and we have these several competitions which are happening, and media is also covering. We have conferences, we have surveys, we have research, we have a session like this going on right now. So I think ultimately that's all helping not only enhance propagating the concept, but in a big way, I think it will also reach levels where people have not really heard about it in any sector that you wish to choose. And I think you're doing a tremendous job on that, Sonal. And this is, I mean, the world is full of conflict. And I think we, as responsible, dignified adults, we are able to, try to even give our little towards this cause. I think we will have achieved a lot. And yeah, of course, mediation has its own place under the sun. And we have to laud whatever has been achieved so far without undermining the efforts that are going all along by the judiciary, by the bar, I mean, and by the stakeholders. And we should promote sharing of success stories, because I think that is a point of highlight. And I mean, what Buddha said, I'll conclude my remarks with that better than thousand hollow words is the one word that brings peace, and nothing could define mediation better.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
And I would also say what Sudesh here told, that you have to find a way. That was a catch line, Sudesh. That was really a very good example. You have to find a way. There are no shoes. That can be a deterrent also, and that can be an opportunity also. So that was really a real catch line. So any good comments now for concluding, Sudesh, from your side?
Yes, actually, the best part is coming now. In fact,
Okay,
actually,
we forgot.
lot of disputes are there between the bank and the borrowers. Whenever bank try to recover its loan, then naturally there are certain disputes. So they are resolved in two ways. Either there is some you can say compromise process between the customer and the bank, or otherwise they go for the recovery cases like in the court of law or the DRT or NCLT now. This insolvency and bankruptcy code is also there. So the cases also go there. So, but here, actually, bank is not very much interested in going to the court or the DRT or to the NCLT. That is, you can say, the last resort. In
Yes.
fact, bank want to compromise. So normally there are a lot of compromises between the customer and the banker, and there are a few very little cases, very little number of cases where the customer is represented by an advocate or by an CA, right? So here I can see the scope of the this
Mediation.
negotiator or मतलब a person who is expert, who can understand point of view of both the parties, right? He can represent the borrower in a nice way, and he can convince the banker also. So I think he can create values for both the borrowers and the banker. So this is my concluding remark, you can say.
That was short and sweet. That was really lovely, because yes, we really, it has been a very diverse, mediation in all facets. Prerna telling us about how it started off in India. In fact, in the world also, it started off with the communities finding ways. With Virash telling us about the work that she is doing, and how it is associated with stopping, or you know I mean, child abuse, or where human touch is involved, whether we call it, you know uh, I mean, getting to know better those people who have suffered, and who better than a trained mediator who can talk and who can be a middle person between the authorities and this person who has been aggrieved. Because somewhere down the line, when police is handling a lot of things, their sensitivity does go away because they have a lot of diverse role where they are handling criminals also, and so the crossover to a empath person might go away, and a person trained in mediation or trained to perform this kind of a role or enable conversation would be there. And Sudesh telling us about the role of mediator in a finance or a banking industry where banks will not be willing to take, as you said, go into the litigation role, or where Prerna also points out that it's a guest who stays there for decades. So that has been really a good session. Any concluding comments by anyone? So thank you so much. It's a lovely session, and thank you for taking your time out for this Sunday session. It was a lovely experience.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the
Thank you,
panelists.
Swarnal. Thank you, Prerna, and
Thank
thank
you
you,
so much.
Virash. I could learn a lot of from your discussion, and a lot of takeaways are there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonal, and you're doing a brilliant job for bringing everyone together. Yeah, you hold yourself so well in these conversations that we learn from you how to learn from each other. So well
How
done to
to
you.
how to snip people and make them speak what?
No, not at
So-
all.
I,
You do such a brilliant
I,
job.
I
Sorry, but
support and second
Analyzing
Virash
every.
views. Yeah,
sorry,
Thank
but
you.
I
it's
support
it's
her
a
views.
short conversation, and I have to give everybody chance, and everybody bring out the best from them. So
Very well
sometimes I
conducted.
do have to snip
Yeah.
and cut something.
Not only very well conducted, but you've
Great.
given us an opportunity to meet the other panelists, I think, who are experts, and to hear each side story is very, very interesting and sets your mind thinking that, yes, there is so much more to learn every single day.
And we learn from each other because I learned a lot today.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yes.
much to the Indian team. Well done. I really
Yeah.
did it.
We say the same for everybody. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
So much.
Too good. Too good.
Yeah, have a nice Sunday, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.